In the distance, the ruins of the once great city of Haven loomed, crumbling towers reaching desperately toward the sky like skeletal fingers. The air was thick with the scent of decay, a grotesque reminder of the world that had been lost. Somewhere in the maze of twisted steel and broken concrete, a small group of survivors huddled together, their faces etched with the shadows of exhaustion and fear. The city, once a bustling metropolis, now lay in ruins, a haunting reminder of the world that once was. The survivors clung to each other, drawing strength from their shared plight, their breaths shallow and quick, as if the very air around them was tainted with dread. Zombies roamed the city, relentless and hungry, their presence a constant gnawing threat. These creatures, once human, now moved with a singular purpose, driven by an insatiable hunger. The survivors knew that one wrong move, one sound too loud, could draw the horde upon them, ending their fragile existence in an instant. The coast is clear, but for how long? The question lingered in the air, unspoken but felt by all. Her companions, Mark, Elena, and young Toby, shifted uneasily, their eyes darting to the darkened windows of nearby buildings, half expecting the zombies to come shambling out at any moment. Mark, the oldest, had taken on the role of protector, his eyes constantly scanning for threats. Elena, with her quick reflexes and sharp mind, was always ready to act. And Toby, though young, had learned to be silent and observant, his innocence a stark contrast to the horrors around them. They moved quickly and quietly through the desolate streets, the echoes of their footsteps swallowed by the oppressive quiet. Every step was measured, every breath controlled, as they navigated the labyrinth of destruction. The silence was both a blessing and a curse, offering them a chance to hear any approaching danger, but also amplifying their own fears. Each corner they turned revealed more destruction. Burned-out cars, tattered remnants of once vibrant posters flapping in the breeze, and the occasional telltale smear of dried blood. The city was a graveyard of memories, each ruin a testament to the lives that had been lost. The survivors pressed on, driven by a flicker of hope that somewhere, somehow, there was a safe haven waiting for them. As Mark rummaged through the aisles, he froze. The store was eerily silent, the kind of silence that makes your skin crawl. Every creak of the floorboards beneath his feet seemed amplified in the oppressive stillness. He was searching for anything useful. Canned food, batteries, maybe even a first aid kit. But something felt off. From the back of the store came a low, guttural moan. It was a sound that sent shivers down his spine, a noise that seemed to come from the depths of a nightmare. The moan was followed by a low growl emanating from a hidden corner cloaked in darkness. The sound was unmistakable, the eerie noise of the living dead. It was the kind of sound that made your blood run cold, a reminder that the world had changed, and not for the better. The sound of something that should be dead but wasn't echoed through the empty aisles. He motioned for the others to be silent, his heart pounding in his chest. The air was thick with tension, every breath a struggle. He could feel the adrenaline coursing through his veins, heightening his senses. The slightest noise could give them away, and he knew they had to be careful. Sarah joined him, peering into the darkness, her flashlight cutting a narrow beam through the gloom. The beam wavered slightly as her hand trembled, but she steadied herself, focusing on the task at hand. The darkness seemed to swallow the light, making it difficult to see more than a few feet ahead. There, shuffling towards them, was a figure. Its eyes were empty, hollow sockets staring into nothingness. The sight was horrifying, a grotesque reminder of what humanity had become. The figure moved slowly, each step a laborious effort, as if it were dragging the weight of its own death. Its flesh hung in ragged strips from its bones, and with each step, it let out a mournful wail. The sound was haunting, a lament for a life long lost. The creature's movements were jerky and unnatural, as if it were a puppet being controlled by some malevolent force. Sarah's hand tightened around the handle of her knife, her breath catching in her throat. She could feel the cold sweat on her palms. the weight of the knife a small comfort in the face of such horror. Her mind raced, calculating their next move, knowing that hesitation could be fatal. She nodded to Mark, who raised his makeshift weapon, a length of rebar wrapped in cloth, and moved forward. The rebar felt heavy in his hands, but it was their best chance at survival. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. The air was thick with the smell of decay, a constant reminder of the danger they faced. The struggle was brief, but intense. Mark swung with all his might, the rebar connecting with a sickening crunch. The sound echoed through the store, a brutal reminder of the violence that had become their new reality. He could feel the impact reverberate through his arms, but he didn't stop. The creature staggered, but it didn't fall. It reached for him with clawed hands, its mouth opening in a soundless scream. The sight was terrifying, a grotesque parody of life. Mark could see the desperation in its movements, a relentless drive to consume, to destroy. Sarah lunged, her knife plunging into its skull, finally bringing it down. The creature collapsed, its body going limp as the life, or whatever semblance of life it had, drained away. She stood there, breathing heavily, the knife still clutched in her hand. They had survived another encounter, but the cost was a piece of their humanity, lost to the endless fight for survival. In the dim light of the crumbling building, fear was palpable. "We need to get out of here," Elena whispered, her voice trembling. Toby clung to her side, his wide eyes reflecting the horror around them. They gathered what they could carry and made their way back into the street, each step heavy with dread. As they navigated the labyrinth of debris, a distant sound reached their ears, the rhythmic pounding of feet, not just one or two, but many. The horde of zombies was coming, drawn by the noise of their earlier fight. They had to move faster, had to find shelter before the dead overwhelmed them. They ducked into an alleyway, the narrow space offering a fleeting sense of security. Sarah scanned their surroundings, looking for an escape route. There at the far end, a door stood ajar. Sarah's heart sank. "This way," she urged, her voice a strained whisper. They burst through the door into an old apartment building, the interior dark and claustrophobic. The air was thick with dust, and the smell of decay was almost overwhelming. Every corner seemed to hide a shadow, every creak of the floorboards a potential threat. The sound of the horde grew louder, the moans and shuffling feet echoing through the narrow halls. It was a relentless reminder of the danger that lurked just outside. The walls seemed to vibrate with the intensity of the approaching menace, making their hearts race even faster. They ascended the stairs, each step a prayer that the structure would hold, that the zombies wouldn't find them. The stairs creaked under their weight, and every sound seemed amplified in the silence. They moved as quickly and quietly as they could, their breaths shallow and rapid. On the third floor, they found an apartment that seemed secure. The door was heavy and the lock still intact, a rare find in these times. Inside, the apartment was in ruins, but it offered a temporary refuge from the chaos outside. They barricaded the door as best they could and collapsed inside, their breaths ragged. They used whatever they could find, furniture, debris, anything to create a barrier between them and the outside world. Exhaustion weighed heavily on them, but they knew they couldn't afford to let their guard down completely. Sarah leaned against the wall, closing her eyes for a moment. Her body ached from the constant running and fighting, and she longed for just a few minutes of peace. She could hear the faint sounds of the others settling in, their movements cautious and deliberate. They were safe, for now, but she knew it wouldn't last. The apartment was just a temporary refuge, a brief respite in an endless struggle for survival. They would need to move again soon, always staying one step ahead of the horde. But for now, they could rest, gather their strength, and prepare for whatever came next. The fight for survival was far from over, but in this moment, they had a small measure of peace. The city of Haven lay in ruins, a testament to humanity's downfall. "How long can we keep this up?" Mark asked, his voice barely above a whisper. No one had an answer. They were living on borrowed time in a world that had already ended. As darkness fell, they huddled together, the distant sounds of the zombies a constant reminder of their precarious existence. And in its shadow, a small group of survivors clung to the fragile hope that they might outlast the nightmare. Just one more day.